everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of The Recovery Scene. I am your host, Leslie Klepek, and today I am talking to Connor Duffy. If you're on TikTok, you might know him as Clean and Serene. He's built up a pretty good following talking about drug addiction, the dangers of drug addiction, harm reduction, all that other stuff. He is a certified recovery coach. He has a lot going on. I'm pretty sure he is a workout junkie as well right now.
I definitely am.
I am going to let Connor take over. His story is amazing. He started messing around with drugs at the age of 9 and was addicted by 11. So he's got a pretty amazing journey to share with us. So, all right. Hey, Connor, thank you so much for being on.
Of course. Thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate you having me on. And I know that we've tried a couple times here to get on. I'm glad that we finally got our schedules to work out, you know. Mm-hmm. And of course we cross paths on TikTok, kind of like what you mentioned. And, you know, I know, I'm sure you can attest to this too. I feel like it's a great platform to spread any type of message that you have, and just the organic growth and like the amount of people that you can reach on it is unbelievable. So
yeah, it really is.
And it's cool. It's like, you know, you get to meet people like you and I, like, who are in a similar niche, you know, in the community. And
it is. It's surprisingly good for networking. It really is.
It is.
You know,
yeah. It is, you know, and so I'll dive into my story. You know, like you mentioned, I started really young. I was 9 years old the first time I got high. And even before I jump into that, I think, you know, I have 2 older brothers. You know, I grew up with a single mother. My father passed when I was like 3 years old when he passed, you know, and it was heavily influenced by his drug and alcohol addiction, you know, addiction and alcoholism. And so growing up, you know, I had 2 older brothers, and I really looked up to them. You know, they were kind of like my father figure, so to speak, you know what I mean? And you know, they were 7 and 8 years older than I was. So, you know, they had some age on me, and I think, you know, I got to see some things. I kind of got a sneak peek into things that maybe, you know, a younger kid shouldn't. Not that I was exposed to a lot, but I picked up on hints. You know what I mean? And
Connor, you just reminded me. P.S. I forgot. This is not for kids.
Yes.
So addiction is not pretty. There will probably be cursing, and there could be triggering, you know, scenarios and whatever. So I'm just letting you all know.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
You. So sorry. Mm-hmm. Totally forgot.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, my story is not for younger kids.
Right.
You know, because I'm hoping younger kids aren't going through this type of thing.
Right.
You know, so I'll just say, you know, I think growing up I was kind of looking for something. I was always looking for some type of, you know, father figure. I was always hanging out with the older crowd. I never hung out with younger kids. I always was like looking to, you know, I guess I was looking for like someone to hold me accountable and feel like I was a part of something, you know. And I think a big part of that was my father passing at a young age, you know what I mean? So I kind of dealt with it in different ways. And so getting back to what I was saying, I think, you know, my brother, Chris in particular, I had a really close bond with him. Me and him had a lot of similar interests. We both like sports, and he was kind of like, you know, a popular guy. And, you know, I saw him partying and hanging out with, you know, girls and stuff like that. So I was like, I looked up to him, you know, and me and him are still very close to this day, you know, and so, you know, I kind of learned like along the ways. I never wanted to get him in trouble because he was doing his thing, he was partying, and he was doing his thing, and you know, I mean, so I kind of learned how to lie and manipulate, you know, for him. When my mom maybe was trying to get some information, or I was asking if, you know, did he watch you, or did he feed you, you know, did he do all these things? And learned, well, I don't want to get him in trouble. So I learned quickly that lying and being deceiving worked, at
Mhm.
a really young age. And, so I kind of learned the tools, if you want to call them that, for getting high and addiction before I ever picked up, and
Right.
I remember one time I was watching, my brothers were having friends over and they were having a good time. And I couldn't wait to be able to do that. Like even before I picked up, before I picked up a drink or a drug, I couldn't wait until I could party like that and do that because it looked really attractive to me, And so, um, yeah, I mean, I'll get right into it. By the time I was 9 years old, we had a family friend. My mom was out for the day, and she had a really close friend, one of her best friends, and one of her best friend's daughter. She was 18, and she was supposed to watch me for the day. And so, long story short, I asked her for a cigarette, and she gave me one. And so, about an hour or so later, I said I wanted to smoke, and I meant another cigarette,
Mhm.
and by the time I knew what was going on, she thought I meant something else. So I was getting high. I was smoking weed for the first time at 9. I didn't even know.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know what was going on. And I'll tell you what. I don't remember being high per se, but I remember doing something that I knew wasn't right, and having to get away with it, knowing that I was going to have to be sneaky and be deceiving and hide something and get away with it. And that in itself was enticing to me. Like
Right.
that was exciting,
Right.
you
If you
know?
could. Yeah,
Yeah.
that feeling. Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I'm 9 years old and I already have the characteristics of troubling traits, and
Right. Right.
characteristics of being deceiving and so yeah, I mean, but listen, by the time I was 11, definitely by 12, I was getting high almost every day. Like I said earlier, I always hung out with the older crowd,
Right.
and because I knew that they could get things that I couldn't necessarily get, and um, yeah, I mean, at 12, I got expelled for the first time. It would not be the last. It was the first time I got expelled in school. Me and I was in the 6th grade, and I skipped class with a 7th grader and an 8th grader, and we got high on the school grounds, and they found out, one way or another. They found out. We didn't
Mm.
get caught right away, but anyway, I got expelled from school, and um, I kind of just got into a lot of trouble as a kid. I was kind of lost. Like I was always looking for some type of excitement. Like I couldn't sit still. I was always getting into something, man. And I I feel bad for some of the teachers I had because I was a handful. I was really a handful. I was a handful for my mom. I don't know how she raised 3 boys. I really have no idea. Um, and by the time by the time I was growing up, she was exhausted because she dealt with those two. She dealt with the older two. So I kind of
You got her when
you
she was
know
tired.
yeah, I took advantage of her being tired for sure. Absolutely. And you know, like I said, I started, experimenting by the time I was, by the time I was 15, I really started experimenting with other substances, for sure. I did heroin for the first time when I was 15, and I didn't even know it was heroin at the time. I I found I was with somebody and they were really messed up, and they dropped a couple bags on the ground, and I didn't know what they were. So I picked it up and I saved it for later, and I didn't even know, honestly. I was very ignorant. I wasn't in the drug world like that yet. I mean, I was smoking an insane amount of weed, but I wasn't in that space yet. So I didn't know I didn't know what it was, and so essentially, I did this bag of heroin, which I found out later was was heroin, and I remember thinking I was gonna die. I was like I was so incoherent and so messed up that I didn't know what was going on, you know.
Did it make you sick?
And then, what's that?
Make you sick?
Oh, I got sick. Yeah, I definitely got sick. I ended up falling asleep on the hammock. I didn't in the backyard. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I went outside and I started playing. I laid on the hammock like I was just taking a nap or whatever. And I have no idea how long I was out for. I have no clue. All I know is that when I came inside, um, my mom says, "Connor, where the hell have you been?" And I said, I've been outside. I said I was sleeping on the hammock. And she says, "How long have you been out there? It's raining." I didn't even know it was raining. Like it was, I was falling. I fell asleep on this hammock and it was pouring out. And walking inside, I mean, I was just so out of it. I had no idea what was going on. And looking back, the rain might have actually, in a roundabout way, might have actually saved my life, because one of the things that people tend to do is when you overdose, people put ice bags underneath your arms, and this happened to me later on in life when I was 18, when I was overdosing. So they put ice bags under my arms and in between your legs, and it's supposed to help you. The cold temperature is supposed to help. And so I've always wondered if that kind of played a part. I have no idea, but so I got extremely sick. I remember I tried to take a bite of food, and I couldn't even get it down. I mean, I threw up. I went outside. I started throwing up.
The only reason I asked is because I almost had the same scenario. I didn't find bags, but I didn't know what I was doing when I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like so sick and half falling asleep and half feeling. So that's why I was curious.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And I remember, like, after feeling like, okay, well, I'm not going to die. I remember feeling like at peace. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And that was kind of alarming, because I was no longer afraid of dying or anything, but I actually felt like, okay, this makes sense. I was like, this is actually kind of nice. And that's kind of like how my personality was. I mean, as far as like, if you think about it, like normal people do not find stuff on the ground and know that it's a foreign substance and have no idea, like a normal, most kids would not do that, what I mean?
They would give it to someone, like
right.
on the ground or
yeah, it just kind of, that's how like I was, you know what I mean? Like I didn't care what it was. I was gonna try it. I was gonna explore, and I really didn't think about the consequences. You know what I mean? So after that, I mean, I really started diving into other things and experimenting with pills, and the trouble even backpedaling a little bit before that, just the trouble was insane. I mean, I was actually expelled from school in the 9th grade when I found that bag. When I wasn't in school when that happened, because I was expelled from school, and which again was for substances. I got caught with weed on school property for the second time, and that was basically like my 5th strike that year. I mean, I got in a lot of trouble with other stuff, from stealing from the school, like scales, because I used to sell weed. So I would steal scales from the science labs, and just crazy, just crazy stuff. And then I also went into my first outpatient rehab at 15 as well, and it's like, it's so easy for me to look back and see all of the evidence and all the warning signs that there was clearly a problem. I mean, even before it got really bad. But like when you're in it, it's like you'll do anything to ignore it, and to totally disregard. It's like you think everybody else is crazy, know? And that's been, you know what I mean? I'm sure you can relate to that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I call it the little voice. You got the little voice going. you should not be doing this. You know, like
Mhm.
this, there's something telling you it's wrong, but the draw, for whatever reason, whether it's, and sometimes for some people, it's not even the initial high. For a lot of us, it's what I've noticed in common with the people I interview is for some reason we feel like an outsider,
Mm.
even if we're not, even if we have
Yeah.
friends, even if we're, it's almost like, but I just don't feel, there's something missing. I'm trying to find it. And so all of a sudden you can mask that feeling, you know, you can mask that feeling of, I have this hole that I'm trying to fill, or I don't feel like I fit in, or whatever it is, you know, and that's what feels really good.
Yep.
You
100%, you know, and to your point, you would think on the surface, I mean, I couldn't have felt much different because I got along with everybody. I was kind of like a chameleon in school. I mean, I got along with the jocks. I got along with the punk, you know, the skater kids. I got along with the troublemakers. I got, you know, the kids who did well in school. I
know,
got along with absolutely,
I
with almost
do
everybody.
not. You're the third recovering addict to say I was a chameleon. That's a quote.
Yeah.
I was a
It's
chameleon.
true
I
because
didn't know who I was.
yeah, you like adapt to your surroundings, to like whoever you're with for the hour, you know, whoever I'm with for this hour or two. And it's true, like what you just said, like I had no idea who I was, you know. I just knew that you know, when I was left to my own devices, when I was left to myself, I did not like. I needed something. I didn't like it. You know, I needed something to take my mind off of whatever it was. You
Right.
know, whether it was sports. I mean, whether it was substances, whether it was girls, whatever. You know, whatever the case may be, I couldn't sit with myself. You know, and I didn't really know that at the time, but you know, I just kind of always gravitated towards something, and you know, getting in trouble gave me that too. It gave me a feeling of importance or significance because I'm getting a reaction out of you. You know, whether you like me or not, I'm gonna get your attention. You know, and that's kind of like what it, you know, that's what it served for me as well. So, um, yeah, I mean, you know, going through high school, and since I was social, I did not work as far as jobs went. I was an entrepreneur, and you know, I used my social skills and my personality and my love for substances to start selling substances. You know, and started with weed, and you know, and yeah. Uh, it became my life, you know. It's essentially what it was. It became my life, and you know, when I was 18, you know, fast forward a little bit, when I was 18, it got really bad. You know, it got really bad. You know, at this point, I was doing Xanax every day. I was doing oxys every day. Later developed into heroin every day, and anything else I can get my hands on. I mean, I was smoking weed every day. If there was cocaine around, I went through a crazy Molly and ecstasy phase where I was just doing just an insane amount of substances like all the time, and it was kind of just like you know, I was like, well, I'm being a kid, like I'm being young, and I'm having a good time, and I'm having fun,
Right.
and even the kids, I hung around the kids that were partying and doing in that environment, and they were even like, dude, like you're reckless, you know. There were friends that I had that wouldn't allow me. I couldn't go to their house because their parents, you know. I once went to my one of my best friend's houses, and his dad said that, you know, he's like, listen, we love you, but you know, I don't want you dying in my house. Like, you can't be here anymore, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, and you know, I was kind of heartbreaking a little bit for sure, you know, and but things like that happen all the time, and I just kind of like bounce to like, you know, I just shrugged it off, and I can never look at like the substance as the problem. It was everybody else, you
Right.
know. It was,
Right. They were jerks. That's all. It
yeah,
was.
yeah. It's like, you know, if you had my life, like you would do it too, or you had my problems, you would get it, you know. And
Mhm.
yeah, you know, and so, you know, the trouble just continued, and I actually had to go to rehab my senior year. I got pulled out of school, and I remember when I went and I told my principal, I told my principal, I said, I'm going to treatment. I said, I gotta take some time off of school, because at this point I got my second DUI in 3 months when I was 18, and when I told her I was going to treatment, she like sighed. She sighed a breath of relief, and she was like, "Thank God." She's like, "Get out of here and get well." You know, like
Yes.
I'm glad, I'm happy that's the case. You know, and um, you know, it's funny. Like I thought that I could like hide it. You know what I mean? I knew like everybody knew that was like what I did, but I was like, ah, like you know, I can hide it to a certain degree, and you don't hide anything. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows.
So slick.
Yeah.
So not.
Hmm.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah. So I wasn't fooling anybody. Everybody knew what was going on. You know, and so I went to treatment. I went to rehab, and I went for I think 3 weeks. I want to say. I don't think it was a full 4 weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks, and I went to a really good place, you know, and I wasn't ready yet. I definitely wasn't ready, but it was a good learning experience for me, you know, and I really think like I was kind of on like a death wish, like subconsciously, like the way I was going.
Right.
I really think like something intervened, and you know, I definitely needed to be there for sure. You know, I didn't get sober right away, but I think it was definitely it served its purpose, you know, because the way I was going, I mean, especially I got out of this relationship, right? And that was another thing. Like you know, it was the first love, you know, the first love that I ever got into. And when she realized what I was doing, because she was away, she was in college at the time. I mean, I was going wild, and and she knew it, you know. I mean, she knew it. And when she was home, I was kind of like I was kind of like under control a little bit, but once she left, I definitely went back to my old habits, and that was like catastrophic to me. I'll never forget it. Like I remember I just went through this. We just broke up, and I remember I did three Roxys. You know, I did three Roxys in one shot, and I remember feeling completely fine after that. You know, and I was like, wow. I was like, this is the answer. You know, I was like convinced that this was how I'm gonna get through life. I was like, this is like I mean I knew I had a problem before that, but that was like the aha moment where I was like, this is it, you know, I can get through anything with this right here, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I still remember that to this day. Like that was like a really big moment for me because I mean, I was just completely out of control after that because I would chase that high
Yeah.
no matter what after that. Once I knew like in my head, I was like, this is the answer. You know, this is gonna work. I did anything in my power to get it,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Oh yeah. Because and the more you do it, the worse it feels when you come down. You know, so you have to.
Oh,
You have a choice
100%.
after a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
And you know, that's really where I can see like my desperation increased dramatically and my morals. This is just what happens. Like as your desperation increases, your morals
Mm-hmm.
decrease. You
Yep.
know, it's that there is no level anymore. There's no balance. And
We'll do what it takes.
yeah, it don't matter. You know, I don't care who I have to screw over, what I gotta do. I'm gonna get it. You know what I mean? And yeah, you know, so and that's pretty much when I got the two DUIs in a few months after that, you know, and within a 3 month span. And went away to treatment and everything. And, you know, and there would just be instances too, like, I'll speak on Xanax in particular for a minute. I make a lot of content on TikTok about Xanax.
You do. Which is
And there's,
interesting because I was one of those people, like, I take half a Xanax and I'm like asleep.
yeah,
It was never
right.
for me, you know, so the Xanax people are fascinating. Not in a good
So,
way, but you know.
yeah, no, I get it. I wish, I mean, that's a lot of people's experiences, and I wish that was my experience, because I could take 10 of them. I could take 10 bars and more, and I mean, you're completely blacked out at this point, but I'm walking around and I'm doing stuff. I mean, I'm not asleep. There was no
Typically, anyway.
Yeah, there was no sleeping. I'm you know, and I'm not glorifying this or saying this because I'm proud of it, because I'm not, but I'm driving around. You know, I'm going from place to place, and I have no idea what's going on, you know, and the amount of times that I woke up behind the wheel and having no idea what time it is, what day it is, what month it is, who am I with, somebody, like, is anyone else in my car, you know, why is there a flashing light in my mirror, you know, like, it's yeah, or why am I in a ditch, you know, waking up, and you know, your best friend, there was a time where I came to from a blackout, and my friend ripped open my car door, and I was like, "What's going on, man?" And he says, "Dude," he says, "you're in a ditch right now." He says, "Look," and there's a full row of cars behind me that are basically waiting for me to, like I'm blocking traffic here. I'm like in a ditch and like on a major road, you know, and I was apparently right near his house. He was waiting for me at the end of his driveway, and I guess I went to turn into his driveway, and I went into the ditch instead. And so he basically ripped me out of the car and like threw me in the passenger seat, and like got in and like had to reverse, and like it's just like stuff like that was like a normal night on Xanax, you know? Yeah. And you know, it just it makes you do things that you would never normally do. And of course, since it's anti-anxiety medication, you don't have the nerves. You don't have the nerves to, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. You know, maybe this is a bad idea. Everything sounds like a good idea, because, like you mentioned, you don't have that voice. You don't have that guilty conscience or that voice telling you not to do something. And that got me in a lot of trouble, because I had a troubled mind before that. So whatever came to mind, yeah. Oh man.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, so I really got in a lot of trouble with that. You know, I committed a robbery on that, which I've talked about on TikTok numerous times, and
yeah, but not here. So tell us what happened.
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was I was coming home from school. I was in. So I didn't have good enough grades, to give you the quick story. I didn't have good enough grades to get into a college, and I really didn't want to go away to college. But once I realized, holy crap, I don't want to stay at home. I don't want to stay home. My friends were going to school up in Buffalo, and they were already up there for a few years because they were older than me. So my buddy told me, he said, "Hey, why don't you go to community college up here and live off campus, live in our house with us. You can room with us." And it's a frat house. It's the president's frat house for TKE. I mean, this was like the cream of the crop place to live. And I was, you know, and I was a freshman, and I was like, yep. I'm like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So that's exactly what I did. I traveled 600 miles to go to a community college, so I could live in a frat house, essentially, you know. And yeah, that was quite the time. You know, that was quite the experience for 3 months because I wasn't in school very long. I got into a lot of trouble there as well. Really started to dive into cocaine there. I didn't even like cocaine. This is the thing. Like, I didn't even like cocaine, but it was something that was around and it was easy to sell because I was in a frat house and it was a party, it was a party all the time. So that's what people were after. And so I adapted to my environment, like we kind of talked about, like, okay, I don't like uppers and stimulants necessarily, but this is what's going on over here. And this is what's going to make me money, so I better learn to enjoy it a little bit, and I learned to enjoy it a lot of it. So, yeah. So basically, anyway, in November, I went back home for court. It was Thanksgiving break, but I also had court around that time, and I had to go back home. And so I was home for about an hour. My mom picked me up at the train station. I was blacked out. I was on so much Xanax that I blacked out for the even before the train ride, but it's a long train ride, and I don't remember any of it. And I really don't even remember my mom picking me up, but she did. She picked me up at the train station, and that was the last time I saw her before I got arrested. I was home for about an hour. I left with one of my best friends. He picked me up. I was drinking on top of Xanax as well. I got spotted some drugs to sell while I was home because that's what I did. So I blacked out that night, and when I woke up, everything was gone. All the substances were gone. All my money was gone, and I was in big trouble because I didn't pay for the weed and the other substances that I had. I owed that money to somebody. And I knew this was a big problem. So I freaked out. I went nuts. This wasn't the first time this happened either. I mean, this type of stuff happened, this type of stuff happened, but I really lost it this time.
Right.
And what's that?
I just said, yeah.
Yeah. I was going nuts.
Sounds like it.
There was, I asked my friend, who were we with that night? And, he told me the people that we were with. And I remembered that. I was like, okay, yeah, I remember seeing him. And I remember, I kind of pieced the puzzle together a little bit. And so I started knocking on doors. We drove to kids' houses and I started pounding on doors and basically telling their parents that, listen, your kid robbed me last night. And this is what he robbed me of, and this is how much money you owe me, basically. And I was just like, yeah, it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous because I had no idea what happened, and there's a thing with Xanax in particular. Not only do you think irrationally, but when you get angry, it's a different type of anger. It's like just because that voice, like you mentioned, you don't fear anything,
Right.
So, I went to, I was looking for trouble and I was really looking for my money. I didn't care where it came from, and I was going to do anything to get it. And none of the parents were convinced that my story checked out, nor did they give a shit. So, I told my friend, I just off the top of my head, I said, I got to get money immediately, and I said, dude, drive me to this gas station. And so he says, well, what are we going over here for? And I said, I'm going to rob this gas station. And he says, no, yeah. He started laughing. He says, okay. He's actually one of my best friends still to this day. Me and him got sober together, and actually we were in jail together. So he started laughing. He says, yeah, okay. He says, sure. I'll drive you to this gas station. And yeah, I did. I definitely did. I had a knife in my pocket, which I did not expose. I didn't I didn't use or anything like that, but I did have my hand in my pocket, and I had this hoodie on, and I had these glasses on. I looked ridiculous, you know. And I remember when I got the money, I started running, and I was so messed up off the Xanax that I forgot where my friend was. I forgot where he was parked, where the car was. That's how, I mean, I was gone, you know. And then when I went to call him, my phone died. He got on the phone. I said, dude, where are you? He says, what do you mean? He says, where are you? And literally the phone died, like, as I was on the phone with him. And yeah, my phone battery was, I mean, I was a mess, you know. And so I started throwing up. I was running down the street, and I'll never forget it. I saw a woman outside playing with her kids, and they looked at me like, who is this guy? Like, I was running for my life.
Right.
And I was like, this is going to be bad. You know, I'm like, well, these are witnesses right here. You know, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm running. I'm like, this is going to end really badly, you know? And essentially that's what happened. I got arrested. I spent the next 6 months in jail, and I was lucky that it wasn't the next 5-6 years, you know, because I thought I was going away for a long time. And it really was starting to look that way, big time. It really was, because I was in.
It's scary. I mean, to me, it would have been scary. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it was kind of like a high school reunion. When I went to jail, I knew half the people in there, and so you know, I remember asking the old timers. I was like, "What's gonna happen?" I was telling them what I was facing. And they were like, dude, you're in trouble. They're like, you're in a lot of trouble. They're like, you're going away. You're probably going upstate. You're probably going to prison. So that's what I thought it was going to be. I remember being in jail for 5 months, and nothing was going on with my case. Which is usually an indicator, if it's moving slow, it's an indicator that you're not going anywhere. Like if
They're not worried about.
Yeah, they're not trying to get you out of there. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, this is so bad. And I went through a couple lawyers, and I told my grandmother, I knew I had money put aside because of my father passing. I had money that was left for me. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I said, if I don't get the best lawyer that we could find with this money that I have, I'm going to prison. I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way, you know. And so we did. We got the best lawyer that we could find, and I was out within like a week or two. And he got me out, and he got me going to a program, and it was a huge wake-up call for sure. You know, it was definitely a massive wake-up call. And here's the sick part, though. I remember getting out of, this is the sick part.
Here's the sick part.
I remember getting out. I remember getting out of jail, and I was happy for about 10 minutes until the thought came into my mind. What was, how can I get high real quick before I go to rehab? You know, like how can I get one in?
Yep.
You know, and I was like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like that is sick. You know what I mean? Like yeah,
that's what we are. I mean, yeah.
I'm
you don't
free.
Think rationally.
Yeah. I'm free. You know what I mean? Like I'm able to walk, and like, you know, I'm really grateful that I'm not in jail anymore. And within 10 minutes, I'm already like thinking about old stuff, you know? And
right.
So, yeah, you know, I went to treatment. I went to treatment for the next 5-6 months, essentially. I went to one rehab, and then that rehab didn't let me out. Well, I thought I was only going away for a month, and I was like, okay, good. Like I'm done. I'm finished with the month. And they said, yeah, you're not ready to go home yet. They're like, they knew, you know, and they said, we're going to recommend. They knew I was court mandated, essentially. I was released from the court, so I kind of had to follow what they wanted me to do, definitely. And they knew that, and they said, yeah, we don't think you're ready to leave, to go home, you know. I was heartbroken because they were right. I definitely was not ready to be out, be out on the street, and I wouldn't have made healthy choices. So I
Right.
went away to treatment for another. I went to another place for like probably 5 months after that, and that was a really good place. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good place, and from there, I learned a lot, and I went away to a sober house after that for probably another 4 months or so. And so I had about 9 months of clean time. And I relapsed. I did relapse about around 9 months. And that's when things got really bad. I mean, that was just like a whole nother, that was just like a whole nother bottom that I never even like thought was possible. I was like living in a really crappy area. I was 20 years old. I mean, I didn't even have 2 pennies to rub together, basically. And I was just like mentally and spiritually broken. I was just like dead. I was just like dead inside. Like I had nothing. And it was a big. I needed to get to that place. Like I really did. And I'll never forget. I had $15. So I lied. I did have 2 pennies to rub together. I had $15 left to my name, and I was really thinking about how I was going to get high that day. I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. And the thought came into my mind again, like maybe if you just found the right way to rob a gas station, like maybe you could,
this time do it right.
Yeah, maybe you could do it the right way. Like the last time, if you didn't forget, where your friend was, you would have gotten away with it. And I was just like,
right, of course.
I was like, I'm sick. I was like, this is sick. And I was walking home, and I someone drove by me, and they said, "Hey, Connor." And I looked, and the car was driving past, and I didn't know who it was. And I got a call like a minute or two later, and it was, I don't even know how he had my number because I didn't have his, and it was someone that I just got out of rehab with probably 6 months earlier. And says, "Connor, how are you doing?" And I says, "Dude, I'm living like shit, man." I said, I'm not doing good at all. He says, "Great, me neither." He says, "I'm not doing good either." I was like, "Oh, okay. What are you doing? Like, let's get together." And so we got together, and he asked me. He said, "Hey," he says, "Have you ever used a needle before?" I said, "No." I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Well," he says, "Dude, you got to do it." He says, "You got to try it. It's like unbelievable." And I knew I was kind of crossing this line that was, once you kind of cross that line, you don't go back.
Right.
And against my better judgment, I did, and I remember walking home, and I knew that my life was going to change like one way or another after that day. It was raining out. It was a really gloomy, a shitty day. I had holes in my clothes. I had holes in my shoes. I was a 20-year-old bum. I mean, I was like legit a 20-year-old bum walking home in the hood, basically, and I couldn't afford my rent either. And so it was my temporary room that I was renting. I couldn't even afford what was it? I think $300-400 a month was this room, and I knew that my life was going to change that day, and it was either going to it was going to be good, and it was going to change in a positive way, or I was probably going to die within the next year or two. And so I remember talking to my mom, and my mom has been sober for, I think she's got 31 years now. And what's that?
That's really cool.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? So I took my first step as a human being in a step meeting. Like as a child, as a baby, I took my first step in a step meeting. So I grew up in the rooms. I grew up in AA. I knew like that environment, and I
Mhm.
was very familiar with it, you
Well,
know.
at the beginning of the meetings when they say, do we have any newcomers? Has anybody never been to a meeting before? And I had Alexander. He was like, I don't know, 9 months old, and I just put
Mm.
his little hand up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it was a great
yeah.
part. Was everybody actually said welcome. So yeah, they know. They know too.
Yeah. Hey, it's a good place to grow up in, you know.
Yep.
I kind of felt at home. I always felt at home in meetings, and that's the thing too. I think I was really lucky because when I did start going to meetings, I was used to it. I didn't. There wasn't a transition for me. I grew up in it, you know, and so when I started going for myself, I think a lot of people are nervous about meetings and stuff like that for a few different reasons, but I think a lot of it is the uncertainty of what it is. It's doing something new. It can be scary if you don't really know what you're getting into.
Right.
You
It's the
know?
anxiety of not knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course when you go, you find out, it's just a support group where people have your back, and they've been exactly where you are, if not worse.
Right. Right.
And so luckily enough for me, I think that was a big part of my recovery, was that I had the background already where I was like familiar with it, and that's essentially how I started. I moved in with my mom, and I went to, as the saying goes, 90 meetings in 90 days. I probably did 110 meetings in 90 days, I would say. I was just like living in meetings and working. I detoxed on my mom's couch, and then I just started kind of putting the footwork together, and I kind of just, things just kind of fell into place. It's like, it's unbelievable. I couldn't really explain like how this was happening, but life was getting better, like little by little, and I started hanging out with people my age that were, or I should say younger. I was definitely the youngest, but there were kids in their 20s that kind of took me under their wing, and I felt like I was a part of something,
Right.
know,
Right.
and that was important. That was like really important for me, and yeah, like that was the start of my journey, and I would have never told you, like, when I started, I didn't even think I was really ready for sobriety by any means. I just kind of needed like a break. I was like, I need to do something else,
Right.
and I need to, give myself a little bit of, I need to take my foot off the gas pedal, if you want to call it that. And I never had long-term goals of like staying sober, and I think that's important. I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's important to not have like, oh,
Right.
I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life, or oh, I need to stay sober for the next year or two or three. I think it's really important to just like keep it in the day and like not overwhelm
Right.
yourself with that pressure.
Mhm.
I
Today is
mean,
hard
how?
enough.
What's that?
Today is hard enough.
100%. And I mean, listen, I got high from the ages of 9 to 20, and I got high one day at a time. You know what I mean? Like, I never worried about how am I going to get high in a year from now. Like, no, it was always like in the day. And like, I always found a way, like I found what I was focused on. And if I was
Right.
focused on that day, damn, I was going to find it. Like, I was going to find a way, and that's really like how people have to really, at least it worked for me. Like, that's how it worked for me. I needed to really focus on the day. Because listen, you never know what the future brings, and it becomes too much. Like you can make all the plans you want, but you never really know how life's going to play out anyway. So why not let it unfold over time? And that was important. It was really important for me to one. I got a support system, which of course was AA, and not everyone goes the AA or NA route, and that's totally fine. That's totally. Some people work better in, some people work better one-on-one, whether it be recovery coaching. Some people like smart meetings. Like, there's different types of
Right.
meetings that are in 12-step base, which is totally fine. Some people just need to be held accountable and do well in outpatient and groups and counseling. And that's totally cool. You know, there's not just one way, you know, and that was just the way that worked for me. So, yeah, and it's like, you know, one thing after another, like things just kind of happened, you know, played out how they were supposed to over time. And, you know, I started getting jobs, and then I got better jobs, and then I started getting, you know, good friends, and I got a girlfriend along the way. And you know, and then I got a car, and then things just kind of like took care of itself. And it's like, wow, this is like what life is about, you know. It's like, oh, this is kind of like the stepping stones of life, you know. And I felt good about myself for the first time probably ever, you know, like without a substance or outside influences, you know what I mean. I was enjoying the process of how life was playing out. But if I ever got caught into looking too far in the future, like we were talking about, it becomes overwhelming, because you can always connect the dots when you look back. Like when you like get through something, you can see how it happened. You know, you could see, like, you could connect the dots, you know, when you look back. But when you're in the moment, you can never connect the dots looking forward. It's impossible. you can't predict life and how it's going to play out, because each day is its own opportunity. Things arise that you can't see happening, you know. So you know, that kind of brings me into the point, like, I always like the things that like made me grow, I think the most in my recovery and in my life, were, I thought they were the most negative things that could have ever happened to me in the moment. You know, like in the moment, I was like, this is a nightmare. You know, this is a huge problem, and this is going to define me. This is like, this means my life is over. You know, and the way that it turns out was those were the best things that ever happened to me. You know, those actually ended up being my, I like to look at it as like pillars. Like those were like the pillars of growth for me. Those things needed to happen to put me in another direction, you know. And the way that I look at that, you know, the lesson that I can learn from that is that I don't know what's good for me, and I don't know what's bad for me. You know, like what I think is bad for me, really, more times than not, is usually a good thing. And it's usually an opportunity for me to actually get better. And, you know, and if you were to ask me when I was 17, 18 years old, if you were to ask me what I wanted and what are the things that are good for you, like what would make me happy right now, if I got them, I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead. You know, so you have no idea. I'm talking about myself. I have no idea what is good for me or bad for me in the moment. You only know how good something is or negative something is, if you want to look at it that way, until it becomes a memory, until you're able to really give yourself some distance from the present moment and look back and connect the dots for what happened after that. So that helps me when I'm going through stuff today, you know, like if something happens and that if my first instinct is, well, this is something negative, you know, this is something that isn't good for me right now. It's really easy for me to go, wait a minute, how many times have I had that thought, you know? And, you know, I never thought,
like, this isn't what I want. You know, this isn't what I want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the better way, because, you know, I absolutely believe that there is a higher power. And because I put it like this, if we're the biggest things going, we are screwed.
Definitely.
Screwed.
100%.
So and it's like, I can look back and see how things connected and how one thing led to something else that eventually brought me here.
Yeah.
And there's no way, in thinking for myself, there's no way I did that. something else took it all and, took the chaos and kind of put it back together, and there you are, No, you have to act on it.
Yes.
Nothing's going to do it for you. Nothing's going to do it for you.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing too. It's like recognizing the opportunities that are actually in front of you, and like things that are happening. I kind of look at it like, so if you put a donut on the table, if you were to ask the optimist what's on the table, they'd say, well, there's a donut. And then the pessimist, if you were to ask the pessimist what's on the table, they say the hole in the donut. You know what I mean? And, both of them are right. Like both of them are correct. But guess what? The pessimist is going to be correct 100% of the time. And they're going to get the results that go with being right 100% of the time. They're going to get negative, pessimistic views and results in life. And the optimist, they're not going to be right 100% of the time. They're probably only going to be right, 20% of the time. But the opportunities that come out of that 20% is life changing. It's seeing the positive or the opportunity in things, and kind of knowing that something good is coming, and
Right.
It's hard to be in that mindset when when you think your world is falling apart, and if things are looking tough, in the moment. And that was really why it's so important for me in particular, like why I needed a support system, because like people offered me their belief. I didn't have belief in myself or that things were going to work out at all. I definitely did not think things were going to work out, but I believed that it was working for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I had a belief system in their belief system.
Right.
If that makes sense, like I couldn't have done it on my own. I needed to be shown a different way and to be shown a different perspective. And that's kind of the power of having being unified in something. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's 12-step meetings. I don't care if it's SMART meetings or, SMART recovery, whatever it is, online forums, group therapy, it doesn't matter. But I needed to have something showing me a different way of looking at things, because I couldn't use the same way of thinking that was landing me in trouble to get me out of trouble.
Right. Right.
I needed a different way of thinking, and I wasn't capable of that on my own.
Right.
So yeah, and just kind of going over like today, how my life is today, and now like being a recovery coach and trying to show people the tools that I learned and kind of like instill that belief system into others. That's like what my purpose is, like that's what I have found is that's what I want my life work to be. And again, it kind of brings me back to the point, like I have no idea what is good or bad for me, because at one point I would have told you that my addiction was the worst thing in my life and was going to end up burying me, and cause me all this pain and suffering. But what was once a liability is now an asset.
Right.
It's now become a message of strength, because I got through it with the help of other people, and I'm able to now show people like, listen, I'm nothing special. If this worked for me, it can 100% work for you.
Right.
And I would have never told you that. If you were to tell me when I was 18 years old, 10 years ago, I'm 28 years old now, when I was in high school, that this is what I would be doing, I would have laughed in your face. I would have said there is no way that this is what I would be doing.
Right.
So
right.
You really never know where life brings you.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
It is. Connor, you have an awesome story. You really do. It's very powerful. You're definitely touching people and helping people, and you're going to do the same thing through this interview. I just really think that exactly this is the place that you were meant to be, and you're good at it too. Now, what I would ask you is, it's the holidays,
Yep.
and during the holidays, it's really hard for people, a lot of the times it's hard for people to hold on to their recovery, whether they're alone for the holidays, because they don't have the family. Maybe they do have the family, but the family isn't, exactly sensitive and still has their fun and whatever, which, what would you tell somebody going through the holidays? What advice would you give to somebody trying to hold on to their recovery, especially if they're new in their recovery?
Absolutely. So this is where, in times like this, like where, around certain holidays or around, I mean, even like certain anniversaries, some people can kind of get antsy around like a year anniversary or a month clean. Like there are certain dates that kind of are triggering to people for one reason or another. It changes. I would say particularly with holidays, I think it's important for people to have an escape plan, like before the holidays come, whether you're going over a family member's house or if you're at home and people are coming to you, you got to have prepared some type of escape plan where you are not trapped in the environment. Like there's got to be a way out. Whether you go, a lot of places do like 24-hour, whether it be 24-hour meetings. There's a lot of holiday meetings and stuff like that. There's always online resources where if you look up, like in particular, if people are ever curious or interested in looking up Zoom meetings and stuff like that, if you go onto Facebook, there are plenty of NA or AA Zoom meetings that you can look up. You need to have some type of escape, because let's say you're at home and you can't leave, or it's in your house and you can maybe only leave for an hour or two, and which I would like to say, like sometimes some people just need to get out of the house, like literally. Like if you are at home and it's an unhealthy environment, literally get in your car and get out for a little while if need be. Like there needs to be a breath of fresh air.
Right.
Now, of course, not everyone has the capability of just staying somewhere else for the night. So you need to have something where you can shift your focus on, whether it be online meetings or whether it even be content. If you jump on TikTok and you follow a creator, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about your content or something that is uplifting, literally just scroll on their account for like 2 hours. I don't care what it is that you got to do to change your state, because it's really easy to get sucked in to especially if it's like a negative environment, or if it looks enticing, like my family is having a good time. If you notice where your thinking is starting to shift and it's starting to look attractive, you got to do something to get yourself out of that environment one way or another, because, and here's another thing, like if you're already in recovery and you have a support network, let them know where you're at. That's the biggest thing. You got to be honest with people that will help you, will hold you accountable, and because if you're not going to be honest with them, then you're left to that own voice in your head that can be very manipulative and very sneaky, and sometimes you can't really tell what healthy voice or the non-healthy voice is talking. You can't really tell which one is present, So that's a big one. Have some type of support system, letting them know where you're at, and someone that you can be honest with, And a lot of those chats, or I should say those pages on Facebook and stuff like that, they're a really good resource for a lot of people. I mean, strangers will happily talk with you and hop on the phone with you and just get you through it,
Yeah,
and
people would be amazed at how recovering addicts are there for each other, not even knowing the other person. It's like we already have this in common. We already know how the other one's feeling.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Connor, thanks again. This was really awesome. This was
Of
really
course.
good. And I I don't know, I just appreciate you being here. I appreciate what you're doing. And I know all the people that you're helping appreciate it too. So
Thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love your content too. I'm glad that we got to connect on TikTok, and I'm hoping too. I think it's really cool to think about, like, I'm hoping that people can watch our content and maybe they get inspired to make content and to, you know, it's kind of like that ripple effect. You know what I mean? Like, you really never know how